Hello and welcome to the Christian Fantasy and Sci-Fi Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything fantasy and science fiction. Your host is Matt Crosswhite, and the subject matter expert is Josiah Marshall. And here we go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Christian Fantasy and Sci-Fi Podcast. I'm the host, Matt Crosswhite, and we are, as always, privileged to be joined by the subject matter expert, Josiah Marshall. Josiah, how are you today?
I'm doing well. My voice may sound a little lower than normal. I am recovering. I wanted to say I'm on the other end of this, so hopefully I won't be doing too much laughing and as a result too much hacking. And I just laugh. Okay, thankfully it didn't trigger a cough. So anyways, we'll see how this
Sound
goes.
a little bit like Barry White today.
I guess I do. It's funny. I've always had this random thought that if I was to record my voice to do some sort of voiceover work when I'm sick, then I could really get some of that lower voice that's got a little bit more Barry White in it,
Yep.
or maybe even some of that Matthew McConaughey. All right.
There you go.
But anyways, thankfully none of that. Okay, good. Yeah, that's a good indication. And if I'm capable of laughing without coughing, that says I'm definitely on the other side. So
Good.
anyways.
All right, so today's episode, we are discussing the top three sci-fi movies that were most impactful on you. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I got it right this time.
No, not to say you didn't get it wrong. Yeah, wrong last time. I still enjoyed our questions from the last episode. I thought that was fantastic.
It was a fun episode.
It really worked well. But I'm sure for some of those listeners driving home at rush hour, it gave them something more to listen to while they're in traffic.
Yeah.
But yeah, top three. I have a list.
Excellent. Well, let's jump in. What makes the top of the charts?
Okay. Well, last episode you made a reference. Now I kind of figured if I said the word heavy, it might trigger a reference, and sure enough, it did. Back to the Future is my number one.
Excellent.
It's my number
one. The original
one.
Back to the Future movie?
The original Back to the Future movie. It's funny that over the years you hear these projects in the works of going, oh, they're going to make a new one, and they were apparently in the process of making a fourth one, and it was going to be a convertible or something like that. They had gotten quite a ways into planning this movie, and then it just all fell apart. You can't improve on something that's, I would say, pretty good. There are some holes in the stories. I won't be wrong there, but overall, all three movies are very enjoyable and work well together in creating an entire storyline.
Yes, absolutely.
But the first one I have to say was one that really struck me, especially with how, now, you know how you watch a movie and you see there's a scene, they have a dialogue or they have an object and they make a point of pointing that out, of going, we really want you to see this. I like sometimes picking up on some of the more subtle ones or not so focused ones, because at one point at the early part of the movie, they're having a conversation, him and his girlfriend. They're walking through that parking lot after school, after he's gotten caught being tardy again. And they're talking about his audition tape, right? Well, he starts going into what if questions. Well, what if they don't like it? What if what if? And then he says, but I'm always afraid they're going to tell me you got no future, kid. Now, it's interesting just how those three lines of dialogue that he gives, which is about three lines of dialogue, can really set that story up. It sets up the movie. It sets up some things, not quite what I would call a thesis statement, but it definitely gives you a point of view in that it's addressing time, it's addressing questions, and it's correct. And this may go into time, but past and future. Really, what is this going to do to me is the question. Now, as I've said before, I'm always big for questions. I like to be challenged. I like to be asked questions by stories. So what is the question that's being asked of me of that story? I kind of was thinking about that after our last podcast, going, what are some questions that each one of those movies really asked me? And I'm definitely going to get into that later with one with one of the other movies I've got planned. But
Okay, excellent.
the 3 words I'm going to use for this one, though, I'm going to still continue that on. The 3 words I would use to address this movie is the power of decisions. Because each decision he makes, based on whatever is happening right in front of him, or based on his desire to be a friend or to help someone else, there's a certain power behind it, in the sense that he's now has the ability to make something, to change something, such as being able to go back in time. He's got the opportunity to change something, such as at the end of the movie, hey, if you guys ever have a kid and he just accidentally sets fire to their living room carpet, go easy on him.
Yes.
Right? It's like one of those little things like, oh, okay, yeah, I could see how that could be a pleasant change of events.
Mm-hmm.
But the overall power of decisions, you see that interplay, not even at the first one, but really you see it as an overarching plot. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but definitely an overarching theme, at least through all 3 movies, because you get to the last one and he's finally met with the reality again of being a chicken, being called a chicken, right?
Yeah.
And then you have this momentous moment for the character when he's pulling up to that intersection, and Needles challenges him to the race again, and he's prepping, he's revving everything up, and then all of a sudden if you know a manual car these days, you notice he's putting it into reverse towards the end, and then he spins around, and then the girlfriend says, what was that? And he goes, I'm not about to race that jerk. And then sure enough, there's the car pulling out that before he hit, and it injured him and he can't play guitar anymore. But it's just interesting how the power of decisions isn't so much the ability to always go back and change something. It's the ability to look forward and go, this is what I'm going to do. Because that's what he does with his own dad when it comes to him realizing, wait a minute, you write stories? Well, let me read them. No. But as a result of that interaction with his dad, he's able to see him later on when he comes back to the present time. There's the book. It's in the box. He did it. And so it's just, I think it's a wonderful story. Yeah, you definitely get to sit back and enjoy it. But at the same time, when you're able to read between the lines like that, you're able to see an entire theme and an entire approach and challenge to say, there are powers in your decisions that you make. What decisions do you want to make in life? Right? So that would be my number 1, Back to the Future.
Excellent.
I tried so hard to keep it together the other day when you used that quote. I'm going, yes, Back to the Future.
Because you had already prepared this list.
I had already, because I like that line. I've used it even on my own son sometimes, and he's just going, what? He hasn't seen it yet. He and I have a long list of movies to watch together, and so that's still on the list. But
very good.
Yeah. Anyway.
And one of my favorite decisions specifically in that movie is the decision that Doc made to go ahead and open the letter and put on the bulletproof jacket.
Yep.
Rather than just let the future pan out.
Yeah. Now I like, let's use Radar. I'll use Radar from MASH in this, and being able to say his line. And because he's asking, but the letter. Oh, I figured, what the HE double toothpicks. Let's do this. So I want to keep this show as kid-friendly as possible. So that's why I'm not trying to use any specific language. But yeah, you're right. It's not just Michael. It's Christopher. It's other characters that are realizing the power of their decisions and how it's going to impact their lives. So, but there was always one thing. I could be proven wrong, and maybe I just missed it. But did Doc ever explain the experiment of why all of his clocks were 25 minutes slow, which caused Marty to be late for school.
Not that I recall. I don't think that ever got an explanation.
I don't either. It's like, okay, another random experiment that Doc Brown is doing, but it's like, okay, yeah, I can see that working for the story and him being late to school. But really, what was Doc's reasoning for it?
Right.
Why
Yep.
did the delay to school? So, anyways, yeah, number one.
All right. So what was silver medal on your podium?
Okay, it's interesting that you would call it silver because when I think of this movie, sometimes I do look at movies in terms of color, and such as Chronicles of Narnia, I would think gold. It's especially the BBC productions, specifically the BBC productions. I think gold because I said before magnificent. Another word I would use would be majestic regarding those BBC productions. But number 2. Silver would be The Matrix.
Okay.
Yeah.
There again, the original one or the whole series?
I'm going to have to go with the original one on this one.
Okay. I don't think anybody will judge you for that.
Probably not. My son even brought that up we were talking about, I can't remember what series was it that we were talking about. But he's like, yeah, Dad, I don't know. I like the first one even more than the others. It's like, yeah. I said, that's normal because you're being introduced to characters, you're being introduced to places. And so it kind of has that connection bit to where you go, that was a good place to be at that moment, being introduced to all of these people.
Right.
So the first one for sure, I think the first one tended to carry a little bit more, I wouldn't say a little bit. I'd say there was a great deal of nuance in that movie. Oh, for crying out loud, you got literary nuance, you've got philosophical nuance, you have spiritual nuance, you've got Gothic nuance. I mean, the Gothic, wow.
A little more than nuance.
Yeah, right. Right. But, and you know what, in preparation for this episode, I even just went back and watched it again just real quick. And it's kind of interesting to go back and see an older movie, right? Because over time, different things develop as far as graphics, acting, and everything. But I would still say that was a good, solid story, and it had good, solid acting. I remember a lot of my friends when we were growing up let's see, this came out when I was a teenager, so my late teens. So I remember going and seeing it, and everybody's got their one-liners. They're coming for you, Neo, and I don't know what they're going to do. Or follow the white rabbit. Or Mr. Anderson. Just always, one of these one-liners and everything. Yeah. But one of the things I always found quite captivating and interesting was the fact that these the directors and the writers, same people, they were coming up with a story based on the top 3 religions in the world, right? They thought, well, let's take different elements of this. Let's see what we can do with this. And I don't think of it any ways that they were making a mockery of any of them at all. And so, but it was interesting to be watching this movie with my dad, who, when I was born, was a Baptist pastor, and hearing him what he's thinking and what he's seeing in the movie, right? Morpheus is John the Baptist, Neo is Jesus Christ, and the Trinity, well, she's the Trinity. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of different things with what Trinity is doing. She's being the love interest. She's being a very strong female character, and everything. So there's a lot of different ways you could look at each one of those characters and go, okay, I see it this way. Okay, I see it that way. Okay. But there's that one line kind of in the middle of the movie, because Neo's always everybody's talking around him. He has no clue what they're talking about. And then they say, oh, the Oracle. Well, who's the Oracle? And he's getting this going in his mind, going, what is it? Okay, this is definitely going to be taking me out of my little comfort zone for him. Granted, he's already been taken out of his comfort zone, to say the least. But there's that line. He sits down on the floor with the kid. The kid's bending the spoons. You remember that? And this is another one-liner. Well, what should I take from this? There is no spoon. Now, before I go on with that, let's go take a step back for a second. You've got Neo and Morpheus in the training room, so to speak, and they are doing. Neo has said, "I know kung fu," and Morpheus, "Show me." So they go off in that training program, and Neo's having his butt handed to him. But he's sitting there at one point, just after getting the wind knocked out of him, and Morpheus leans down and goes, "Is that air you're breathing now?" It's like, oh, okay, yeah. So you get these little points of going, wow, I've never really thought of it that way before, and so you're left with these moments going, wait a minute, what am I breathing right now? What am I doing right now? Do I even know? I mean, you just got all of these things going on. You go, I don't know anymore. And you could almost say that the Matrix asks almost too many questions, which is why there is no spoon isn't a question, right? It's a statement of fact. It's a statement of reality, right? Which is why I found it so interesting. But it was actually the first movie, truly, that caused me to be able to feel any sort of confidence, because a lot of growing up, I always had questions about my faith, and I wouldn't say that my environment and the people I was surrounded with really gave me the freedom, let alone the confidence, to be able to open my mouth and express those questions. And there were times I did, and the reaction wasn't always what I wanted, to say the least.
Sure.
But this movie, when I first saw it, going, ooh, is that air you're breathing now? It really just gave me this opportunity to go, I can ask these questions. Even if I might not be asking them of someone else, I can still ask these questions. That was the reality of it for me. I can still ask these questions and know that if I'm not able to get an immediate answer based on my searching and my reading or whatever I might be doing, I can still have those questions. Those questions do not have to put my faith in doubt.
Yes.
Right? Now, one of the interesting elements that when you look at the statement that there is no spoon, it can cause anyone to question reality. And one of the things I've always found quite fascinating from a biblical point of view is how there's a reality established with Adam. There's a reality established with Jesus. And as a result, I knew, it's kind of funny. You're born with this an ingrained idea of understanding of going, okay, this is the reality of Adam. You get it. You don't have to really think too hard about it. But then when you're presented with the reality of Christ, because when you look at Matthew 28 and you're looking at those verses, depending on what translation you use, there's a verse that says, you read it normally, you hear, and baptizing in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. There's other translations that says baptizing them into the reality of the Father, of the Son and the Holy Ghost. And you go, ooh, that's taking it a step beyond right now. And what I think it's taking a step beyond, at least in one area, there's a lot of areas, I'm sure, but one area is compartmentalization. There was no hold bar for Neo. He couldn't just simply sit back and let this be one little part of his life. That pill meant a big deal in him making a decision of what he was going to be stepping into. Right? Now we can even go into say there's a power of decision there. Yeah, sure. But at the same time, this was all or nothing.
Right.
All or nothing, which is why I sometimes find the statement of marriage is a 50-50 interesting, because I'm going, wait a minute, 50-50. You're only going to get half of yourself?
Right.
I'm taking it kind of literally. Let's be fair. I'm taking it a little literally, But at the same time, I want to give 100% in my relationships. I want to give 100% in my marriage. I want to give 100% in my relationship with God. And so that's how this movie ended up just coming into play for me and just how it impacted me. There's all sorts of other little things I can pick up on and maybe say that this was another key moment. But that's really, I think for right now, how that movie impacted me the way it did.
Excellent.
So,
Well described.
do you like that movie?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It's a good movie. I enjoyed it.
It reminds me of one of my favorite Ted Dekker novels called Skin. But we'll talk about Ted Dekker another time.
Yeah. So some of our listeners going, "Oh, Ted Dekker, Skin, yes, let's," and then boom, no, we're gonna hold that for next time. Just keep with us, folks. We're gonna get there.
We will. We'll have a Ted Dekker mini series at some point.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely agree to that. So
excellent. All right. So third on your podium, what takes the bronze?
Okay. Again, color. I like it because there is a certain element of bronze to this picture, because there's even some scenes where you could go almost look at that's kind of a bronze screen. All right. I'm going to say a movie, and some listeners are going to go, "Are you off your nut? Are you off your rocker?" Yes, I have fallen over, but I can get up. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Have you seen any of the old Star Trek movies, Matt?
Yes. To be honest, I'm not a Trekkie, and I
Okay.
can't place which one's which. So help me
Okay.
out. Which one is that?
All right. Well, let's see. Where would we place this? How would we rank this? Number one, the motion picture is considered the worst movie of all of the Star Trek movies for Star Trek Trekkies. Okay. For Trekkies.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had conversations with my own brothers regarding that movie. And even one of my brothers recently said, "Oh, but the remastered one is actually pretty, it changes a certain bit of the movie. It makes it a little bit more tolerable." I'm going, "Oh, all right. Well, I might have to try that. I haven't tried it yet." But Final Frontier is the number 5 movie. It comes right after Voyage Home, which in Voyage Home, really you got each movie kind of playing off each other, except for really number 1. Really, number 1 ends up being kind of a standalone, and except for the fact that they're bringing the crew back together. But in number 2, you've got The Wrath of Khan. In number 3, you've got The Search for Spock. Number 4, you've got The Voyage of Home, where they go and they take the Klingon battle cruiser, whip it around the sun, and they travel back in time to pick up the humpback whale, so it can go back into the future and be able to sing to this probe that's about to destroy Earth. Very long cylinder probe that comes out of nowhere and is about to threaten Earth and destroy it. And then the only thing that's going to be able to turn it off and send it back where it came from is the song of humpback whales. It's like, okay. But
honestly, can I speak very plainly?
Go ahead.
That sounds like too much pot was smoked when the writers were writing that one. Especially not having seen it. Just the way you described it, like there was a heavy cloud over those writers.
Okay. I want to be very careful with repeating a line from the very own movie. Anyone who's seen it has heard this line, so I'm just going to say it. Kirk and Spock are riding in the truck with the lady, like a specialist, the lady who knows all about humpback whales, and he and she asks Kirk about Spock. Is he okay? And he leans over and goes, "Yeah, I think he just did a little too much LDS in the 70s."
No
it's
way.
Like, wait a minute, what did he just say? Because he's trying to say LSD, right? But it's one of those lines you go, I can't believe that's actually in there. Okay.
Right? They didn't edit that out. That wasn't a blooper.
No.
He did a little bit too much Mormon.
Yeah. So it's like, okay. And I've actually put myself in that place going, what if he had said, well, he just did a little too much evangelicalism? It's like, okay.
That makes sense on one level. So I guess.
Right. So at the same time, you just go, wow, I can't believe they actually put that in there. And then it stayed there. Yeah. So anyways, but then you get into number 5. Now, number 5 is in some ways forgettable as is number 1. I think number 1 more so than number 5. There are elements of number 5 that could grow on somebody, I think. There are places that they visit. There are aliens that they see. There's things that they do that you go, oh, cool. All right. One of the ones that seems a little okay. The opening scene is Kirk is climbing a rock face. I'm pretty sure it's in Yosemite National Park. And he's doing it freehand. So there's no ropes, none whatsoever. And he's climbing along. It's the opening credits. And then he grabs onto the wall and he's turning and he's just looking at the scenery. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Spock pops up right in front of him. And Spock's wearing these anti-grav boots that looks like something off of an Iron Man suit. You go, okay, hey, Spock, long time no see. And so they have this conversation, right? And it's just one of those random things you go, okay, that's weird, but it's funny. But Kirk loses his handhold and eventually loses his footing and starts falling. Spock does the hero trick. He spins up, down, aims down, and goes straight and grabs him by the ankle. And he manages to stop Kirk just a few inches from the ground. Here comes McCoy. So the camera angles upside down with Kirk's perspective. McCoy's running up, looking like he's bouncing off the planet. And Kirk says, hey, Bones, you mind if we drop in for dinner? But what I liked about the opening scene and the closing scene is camaraderie. It's just the relationship that these 3 men have with each other. You got Bones, yes, Spock, and Kirk. It's like, okay, great. But let's get into some of the craziness, the actual craziness of this movie. The entire premise is they're going to go look for God. Now, Kirk, I don't think would definitely come up with that idea off the top of his head. Spock, no, wouldn't even. Right. Bones, I think he'd make some sort of joke about it. Darn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a whatever, God chaser or whatever. But anyways, Sarek, who is Spock's brother. Wait a minute, did I say that right? I think I said it right. I hope I didn't confuse Spock's brother with his dad. But anyways, I think I just did actually. I know the name. I know the name of that brother. I don't know why it's blanking me now. But anyways, his brother in the. Were you going to say something? Oh, okay. No. His brother.
I can't help out because I haven't seen the movie. So.
Okay, but his brother in the opening part of the movie, for opening scene, he walks up on this lonely alien in what looks to be the middle of the desert. Looks like he's trying to mine or dig for something. And he just looks at him. And he looks at him. And then this alien goes through such a transformation, going, his eyes open, he's able to breathe, and just a sense of heaviness leaves, and goes, I will go with you. I will go with you, yes. And so they're showing that Spock's brother has this ability of connecting with people. He's using his empathic abilities to connect with people without actually touching their face. And I think there's something that they're trying to use there. I think that it's definitely the idea that, oh, Jesus, in all of his glory, he just had to look at somebody and boom, he'd get their attention. No, that's not how it worked. Even Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, said that Jesus' glory was shrouded. He was just another guy. You don't really know it's the servant. But anyways, he's doing this with other characters through the movie. And it comes to a pivotal scene. And really through the buildup to the movie and even the introduction of his brother, you go, what is he supposed to be? Robert Tilton? What is this? A televangelist approach? Well, what is this? Because he kind of has that vibe, that televangelist sort of vibe. But they're standing in what would be probably in a TNG realm of the 10 forward. It looks like a captain's lounge of some kind. Okay. And so They just escaped out of the brig, and they're trying to get the ship back over again because of what Spock's brother did. He's managed to convince everyone except for Scotty that, oh, you want to go on this journey with me. We want to go find God. And so he's got everybody hoodwinked except for these four: Scotty, Spock, Bones, and Kirk. So they basically cornered in this room, and here comes Spock's brother. He tells all of the other guys with the guns to leave. I'm going to have a talk. So he starts bringing up pain. He brings up Bones' pain, the pain that Bones wasn't able to heal his daddy. His daddy died from his sickness that was extremely painful. And then even Bones' character says it wasn't long after he died that I actually found the cure. And so his brother Spock's brother is trying to help Bones deal with that pain, right? And even Spock looks at him and says, you don't know me as well as you do, little brother. My pain is not there for you to exploit, and it's not the pain that you might think. But then he's able to bring up this scene where Spock's being born, and his daddy looks at him and says, so human. And you think, oh, wow, he's just put Spock into a mode. And so he walks off. But then when he approaches Kirk, now, story aside, which it's not the greatest storyline, I will admit. Story aside, and the fact that I have watched this movie a grand total of maybe 3 times in my entire life. Something Kirk says got me thinking. Because Kirk starts telling him, no, you're not going to bring up my pain. You're not going to help me you're not going to relieve me of this at all. But when he said this line, I need my pain. And it got me thinking, I'm going, wait a minute. Because when I saw this movie, because I was actually not allowed to watch this movie growing up. So when I was in my early 20s, I went to a library, I got the video, and I watched it. Yes, that definitely dates me as to
watching Star Trek.
That and many other movies I wasn't allowed to watch growing up. But that statement met me in a time of life where I was dealing with a great deal of pain. And I thought, ooh, do I actually need my pain? And that was the question that really hit me. Do I need my pain? Which is why the three words that I would have with this is let it go. Which is poignant considering that another element of my life not necessarily another element, but another source that was very poignant to me in my life was a song by the band Newsboys called Let It Go. It was on their Take Me to Your Leader album. And I don't think that thing got near enough credit or acknowledgement that it didn't do. I mean, Elegy off of their Going Public album didn't get as much, and that was the band's favorite song, and it really is an excellent song. Elegy is. But Letting It Go, it's a song talking about holding on to unforgiveness. It's holding on to pain. And then the chorus is discussing, well, Jesus went to the cross. Will you go to yours? Are you going to let this go? And the bridge is what always got me. The darkness laughs as the wound destroys, and it turns your prayer to noise. It's like, oh, yeah. That's telling right there. That's very telling right there, especially what pain can do in a person's life. And so it may not be a movie I watch a lot. It may not be a movie that I even own. I don't even own this movie. But it is, and it's not one that many people would say is a good movie. But that one line helped me be able to see my pain in a completely different way. And so that's why it made my number 3.
Excellent. I think a lot of us hold on to pain and unforgiveness as a way of protecting ourselves and guarding our heart against future pain without realizing that we're actually isolating and building a wall around ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's a good line.
Mm-hmm. I like it too. And regardless of what the conclusion of the movie is, that's the line that stuck with me.
All right.
Because if I was to say the ending of a movie, The one that I like the ending of Matrix because it gets into that bass. It just, and then boom, it just sinks, it just hits there and it just sets that crescendo and you go, wow, okay, yeah. And then there's Neo flying off. It's like, yeah, that's cool. But anyways, yeah. So that's my top 3. Appreciate you listening.
Excellent. Well, that'll wrap up our episode of the top 3 sci-fi movies on Mr. Marshall's personal list. So join us next time for another episode of Christian Fantasy and Sci-Fi Podcast. And until then, happy watching, happy listening, and happy reading.